just starting with something like HTML or something, and I didn't really put this title. What I want to do is introduction to Vue.js, kind of instead of introduction to front-end development. So if you're right now new to front-end, it might not be the one for you. Just to let you know first. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so first, a little bit about me. So if you look at the workshops, you'll see like presented by include AI Society and then someone named Huang. And then what is a guy here present? But I actually don't know, because just someone asked me if I wanted to do a presentation and I just said yes. And then I don't know how it comes I'm here. So a little bit about me. So I work as a full stack developer back before I come to Davis, called Urator. I don't think any one of you know that, but that's what I did. So if you're like me, you're not good at both front end, and not good at both back end. That grows out your full stack development. So that's how full stack is. And then I have my own online course called Coding Alpaca, which teaches Ruby on Rails if you're interested. It's already not available right now, so don't Google. And then right now I work at the UC Davis Geno Center as a site reliability engineer right now. So that's what I do. And then the overview of today's workshop would be I'll do some introduction to the basics of Vue.js. And then I'll do an example on how you could create a reusable components. I'll talk a little bit about components later. And then if we still have time, I'll do a demo of the classic front-end app to-do list app together. So here we go. So today, as I said, I'll have a little assumptions about all of you that you know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and potentially how to use the terminal. Okay, so the first question would be why do I use Vue? So I started to wanted to introduce a JavaScript framework, and the reason why I choose Vue today, I'm not telling you that Vue is the best, but I think Vue has the easiest learning curve compared to React and Angular. So if this is your first JavaScript framework, I would really recommend learning Vue as the first one, because I think it has the easiest learning curve. And then I think the benefits of Vue is what it does is it provides a data-centered way to manipulate the DOM. What I mean is, and if you did JavaScript before, you'll notice that JavaScript has a lot of events, and a lot of things. Changes of the DOM is based on events, like if you click something, if you type something. But Vue really provides a new way to how you should change your HTML, and it's based on how your data changes. You will see it in the later examples why this is what I mean, data-centered way. Okay, so let's start with the basics. So the first thing you have to do is you have to install Vue. So in this case, I'll use a CDN to install, which is the easiest way you can do. So if you just go to Vue.js, Vue.js.org, and you go to get started, it has the URL that you need here. So this one, if you include this one, it's all done. You just need to include this script tag in your JavaScript. So I'll do it right now. So this is kind of a live coding thing that I like to do, so you can do together with me. So here I will just create a new file. Let's just call it index.html. And then here, I'll just do, we don't need this. We don't need this. And then we can go to here, just copy the script, and paste this, and we're done. So this is the first step of including Vue.js. Vue.js is just a single file of JavaScript that you can include in your HTML. Okay, so after we install Vue, I'll start talking about the template system. So how you would use Vue for the first step is you need a tag. So typically we will create a app tag, like something like this here. This will enable, and after you have this tag, we need to initialize it. So here we could write the script to initialize it. Let's do app equals to new Vue, and within we pass in the element, the ID of the tag that we need. So you do EL, which stands for element, and then inside you just do app. So this will initialize a div, which its ID is app. So everything inside this div right now, Vue is available. So let's see what Vue provides us. The first thing is a template engine. So if you just do 2 open brackets with 2 close brackets, something like you want to inject any JavaScript in it. Let's say 1+1. So if you don't have Vue, you will just show 1+1. But if Vue is enabled in this app div, Vue will actually change it after a calculation. So you can see after I can open it in my browser here. You can see that it shows 2. Is it big enough? Yeah. It actually shows 2 right now instead of 1+1. So after you initialize Vue in somewhere, everything in it, if you have this 2 open curly braces and 2 closed curly braces, it will use JavaScript instead of normal HTML text. So it will calculate 1+1 and put the result inside it.
Can you make the font a bit bigger?
Sure. Is it big enough? Okay, great. So okay, so after the templates, let's see, I think the most magical moment that I have in Vue is you have data binding. So what's data binding? Let's do an example here. So in an HTML application, often you would have something called, you'll have an input box, something like this, input. And then you could see that in your file, you'll just have somewhere you can type. But it's rather difficult to do if you wanted to have a variable in JavaScript, let's say input text, and you want it to be in sync. What I mean in sync is whatever I type in here will reflect on that variable. If I type F, the variable will become a string F. If I type FE, it will become FE. It will be the 2 variables, the variables and the input text in sync is a little bit difficult to do in plain JavaScript. But in Vue.js, they provide something called data binding, which could allow you to sync these 2 things. So let me give an example. So in your Vue initialization, you can actually define a piece of data. This data could be anything you want. So here I would just do a input text here. And then what I want to do is I want to bind whatever is in this input to this input text variable. So Vue provides something called the V model. So you can use V model equals to, and then here you just put input text. And then at this point, whatever time in the app, whatever time point, the input inside your input box will be the same as the variable here. So you cannot really see what's in here, but here I could do something like this. I could just output input text. And then after I refresh, you can see it actually went in sync. So whenever the data changes inside your input box, it reflects on the variable here that I printed here. So this makes sure, Vue will make sure every time, no matter how many places you're displaying the stuff, it will update it using the data that you have. And then whenever you change the data, it will update the variable. This is data binding. Also, Vue provides some ways you could change your HTML. So the common thing will be conditions. And it provides vif, velse, and vshow in order to let you decide whether you wanted to show a piece of HTML or not. For example, in the same place here, let's do just some simple text here. But if you have some kind of boolean, let's say is shown, let's make it to true. And then I could do vif in here. And then put in is shown. So right now is shown is true. So this will show in the HTML. Let's copy another one and let's do not is shown. And then here I'll do text not shown, not showing here. So in this case, Vue should only show the first line instead of the second line. Let's see what it does. So I'll refresh. And you can see, you can only see the first line, and the second line is not Vue. Another thing that Vue provides as you see is vshow. So I'll do vshow here. So there's a difference between vshow and vif. So if you go to the HTML, you can see that both of them are not showing. But if you do inspect, you can see that the difference between vshow and vif is that if vif equals to false, Vue will take it completed out of your DOM. So it will not be present in your HTML here. But if you do vshow and it results in a false, it will inject display none. So it's still in your HTML, but it's not shown using your CSS if you use vshow. If you use vif and then it results in the false, it will be taken out completely out of your HTML. So that's the difference between vif and vshow. Also, Vue also provides something called list rendering. So we've seen that you can display a single variable. But what about arrays? So if you have a list, let's say apple, banana, and oranges, or something. And then you wanted to show everything in this list. So you could do something called the v-for. So what you do is, you do, for example, you wanted to have two LIs here. So you do v-for, and then you do it like something in something. So you have item in list. So right now, item would be the two strings here. And then if you wanted to display it, here you just do item. So this would display two li HTML elements. And then within each of them, it will place the item into the li. So let's see how it does here. You can see that it swaps it into apple and oranges. So this is how you do list rendering. Okay, attributes. So there is the every HTML tag has some sort of attributes. And also you can change this by passing into JavaScript variables. So for example, you can see that the difference here is that you have the colon here. So if you want to be just a normal HTML plain text, you don't include the colon. But if you include the colon here, Vue will bind whatever inside here using JavaScript instead of normal plain text. So let's do an example. So if I just have some class here with normal without colon, so you can see here it is just a normal div with a class, some class. But if I do a colon here, and then I do have a data called some class. Let's make it test. Then what Vue would do is it will evaluate this variable and put the value in it in here. So let's refresh. You can see here now it becomes test. This is really useful when you want to control things control your class, CSS class, based on your JavaScript variable. In a lot of cases, like if you want to show a model or not, or if you want to do change of text, then it's pretty useful. And then the last, I think the last one here is events. So pretty different thing from the normal. Before Vue.js, most best practice tell you that you shouldn't put events or JavaScript code into your HTML, but Vue actually does it the other way. It puts, from here, you can see you can have the add symbol. So if you just do add click, and then a JavaScript code here, it will actually execute this JavaScript when it's clicked. The benefit of this is if you're maintaining a code like 1,000 lines of JavaScript, if you're using plain JavaScript and you do like add event listener, it's really hard to find which line of code is triggering this event, because you have to go through your JavaScript file and you have to Control F and then find which event when you add it, and it's pretty hard to debug. But instead, Vue put it here, just in your HTML tag. So whenever you just go to look at your HTML, you can easily see that which function it is executing. So it's pretty easy to debug in this case. So let's do a example of the add. So maybe I just do a button, and then click me here, and then you do add click, and then whatever JavaScript function you want to execute. Here I'll just do alert, test, and then let's see what happens. So here, if you click, okay, it doesn't work. Did I do something wrong? Yeah, alert is not a function. I think, did I misspell it? Let me try console log. I think when I was using it the first time, it does reflect to this kind of thing, but maybe it has changed to that you cannot use the default ones. So in Vue, you can actually define your methods here. So let me just define my methods. And then I'll just do a alert. And then here I'll do alert. Let's see if this works. Yeah, that works. So I think it changes because before that you can use any function inside here, but I think right now it changed that you cannot use the default alert or console. You have to use the one that you define here. Okay, so that's basically all the basic stuff here. Do anyone have any questions about the basic stuff and setup? Great. So let's go. If no, let's go to creating components. So I'm not sure if you guys have the same feeling that when I'm doing web dev. So you know that we have h1 tags, headers, h2, h3, and then we have buttons that you can just use button, and then you can have the predefined stuff. But don't you want something just like a nav bar, and then you can show something like this? Or greater, maybe something called a website, and then you can just have predefined stuff. So Vue actually allows you to do some sort of things like that. So that's, I think, one of the things that really changes front-end development is component, which React also has the concept of components. So what I would do here is try to create a modal component, and then you can see how this works. And then the best thing about components is that it's reusable. So you can actually split every common used components in your website, split it into small components, and you can use it whenever you want in the future. So what I'm going to do is a modal component. So here I would use CSS framework called Boma to help me do this. So Boma is actually something like Bootstrap, if you know what that is. And Bootstrap actually provides JavaScript functionality for you, but Boma doesn't. So that's why I chose to use Boma. And then I'll have to include it. So first we still use a CDN. Let's do this one. So let's include the CSS here. And then it needs, it also needs font awesome. So I'll just put this in here. So what I'm going to create is, let's see, it has a demo here and components, and then a model. So what I'm trying to create is something called like this. When you press it, and it launches full screen of some sort of content. So here it has the HTML code that I need. So let's do it here. And it says in order for the whole model to exist, you have to give it the isActive class. So here I'll just put the isActive here. And let's see what it looks like. So it just looks like this because the resolution is too big. It just looks like this. And right now it doesn't have anything because Boma doesn't provide any JavaScript. So it's just plain CSS right now. And then we wanted to make this into potentially something you could do like this. then it will turn into the one that we want. So the first thing, in order to use a custom component, you have to register the component first. So what I'll do here is to use Vue.component. This is how you register a component. So the first thing you pass in is the name of the component, which right now is a modem. And the second would be the HTML template that you need. So right now, the templates, the whole HTML that we need is this part that we wanted to display when we use modal here. So let's put this into the template. So you do the template. And this is what I wanted to show when I use modal. This part. Okay, so after you have that, you could delete all these. And just use the modal. Let's see if it works. So right now I'll just do a refresh, and everything is still the same. But you can see that I only have the modal here. I didn't have anything else. So that means it works. But what you wanted to do is you wanted to control it. When you press the X button, you want the modal to disappear. So how do you do that? So what I wanted to do is I wanted to control the whole component outside of and in the main component here. So what I wanted to do is to pass in a attribute like let's just do is open. And then I want it, if it equals to true, it will open. And if it equals to false, it will close the whole modal. So as previously said, if we want to use JavaScript here, we have to have the colon in front. So to do this, you have to predefine what are the properties that you should pass into a component. So here, under components, we have to do props. So this is an array which defines all the possible properties that you could pass into a custom component. So in props, what I wanted to do is open. So one thing to notice is that everything in your JavaScript uses the way that I'm writing. This is the snake. No, this is the camel case, right? Yeah, uses the camel case. So you do every new word, you capitalize it. But when it goes into the HTML, Vue actually parses it into this is not a snake case. I'm not sure what case this is, but it uses hyphen in between words to split two words. So this is something that you need to be careful of is the naming. Because the naming in HTML uses hyphens to separate words, but in common JavaScript it uses camel case. So here is open will be translated to is open by a hyphen when you're using in HTML. So this means is open right now is something that you could pass into the component. And right now, we can control that if is open is true, then we want to have the is active class here. But if we don't have is open, we don't want the is active class here. What we could do is we use the binding for attributes. So we do colon class. And then here we could actually pass in an object. So we have is active, and this we could pass in a boolean here. So this we pass in is open. This means that if this value results in true, Vue will put the isActive class into the class attribute. If it results in false, it will not show up anything. So let's see if it works right now. You can see that it works, it results into true, so it has the exact active. And let's change this to false. And then you can see that it disappeared. So this right now controls how if we have this isActive class or not. And moreover, we could have a variable outside here in our main Vue app data. So here we just do isOpen, and we set it to true. And then here we could pass this isOpen here. We don't need to hard code it. Okay, the next step, we wanted to be able to press the X button. So what we do is Vue provides something for a component that you could emit a event. So for a component, you could emit any kind of event, custom event name you want. So what we want is that when you click the X button, we want the component to tell the outside that the X button is clicked. So we want to execute the close function or something that closes the model. So how you do that is you use the add click. It's the same thing. So here, this part is the X button. And then how we wanted to close it is add click. How you could do it is you use a magic function called $emit, and then you emit a name. The name is the event name that you want. So here I'll just do close. So outside here we could catch the event that we emit outside here. So here we could do add close and whatever function we want. So we could set is open equals to false. So here, if you click this, it will close it because it tells the outside that you have to change the isOpen into false. And last, we wanted to have a button here so we could demo that we can also open it. So let's do a button. I'll give it as primary so to make it green. So I'll do open. The default here should be false. And here, when we click this, we should do isOpen equals to true. Here. So when we click open, it will open the whole model. And we click X, it will close it. Okay, one more thing. The some text here isn't really used right now in our template, right? No matter what you write in here, it doesn't show in the model. So what Vue allows you to do is actually do something called the slot. So you could use a slot tag here. And then whatever you put inside your component will be slot into here. So let's see how it happens. It's actually not, let me make it more easy. Let's add a box here. Is it showing? No, it's not showing. Let's see if it's in it. Yeah, the content some text is here. It's because the size of the screen right now is too squeezed, so that you can see that the text here is put into the component that we wanted here. So this is basically how you could create a brand new component. So you use Vue.component to register a component, with whatever name you want. And then after you register, you could define the template. Basically an HTML, what kind of HTML you want it to replace when you use the custom HTML tag that you create. And then in order for you to pass in variables, attributes here, you have to define some props. Only the props that's defined that in Vue will react to it. And then after that, if you wanted to have custom events, you could use the emit function, and it would emit the custom events that you could catch outside here. So this is pretty powerful. So not only for navbars, tabs, anything that you use very commonly, you can split it into a components. And I know companies that they have a lot of components that's made by other teams, and they reuse it together. And then so you can just reduce the amount of work you have using components. Okay, so that is components. Anyone have any questions about component and how you create it? Is it too fast or? Okay. Anyone say anything? Okay, so the last one, I didn't expect we would have time, but I think I'm doing it a little bit fast. So the last thing I would wanted to do is to do a small to-do list app to show you how Vue is, how we could use Vue to do some little app like that. So I can create, I'll create a brand new HTML here. So I'll do to-do.html here, and I'll just do a brand new. And then this, as the same thing, you have to include the Vue.js script here. I'll get it from here. And then everything to start would be the same. So you have to create your const, and you create new view, pass in the element here. So that's basically the basic thing that you have to do when you create a Vue app. And then so right now, what I wanted to do is a simple to-do list app. So to start with, we have to start with data. Because everything in Vue is always based on data, and your view is always changed by the data. So whenever you want to change the view in your Vue app, what you do is you change the data, and then everything that uses the same data Vue will refresh the whole DOM and change everything that uses that data to its correct form of view. So right now we have a list of tasks. So let's just do tasks, and then it would be an array. So inside, I would wanted to have some tasks. So here, I'll have some tasks. Maybe just do task 1 for simplicity. Let's just do work. Okay, and then I want to display it. So to be simple, let's start with displaying them in just a list. So we could do just a li, and then we use v4 to display it. v4, so we have tasks. So let's do task in tasks, and then for every one of them, we'll just do task dot name. Test dot test sounds like it, so let's change it to name. Okay, let's see what happens here. Oh, this is another different. So let's open the browser. Here we go. So we have the tests. So another thing that's pretty useful is that if you're using a browser that has, I'm not sure if every browser has that, but especially in Chrome-based application, you can actually have a plugin called the Vue debugger. And then here you can see that it will show all the components that you have, and then all the data that you have here in your console. If you have installed this one is really useful. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to be able to do is to remove tests. So let's create a X button here. Let's do X. So you can see that we have the X button here. And then what I want to do is, if I click the X, I want the test to disappear. So let's do it. So here, you could just do add click to trigger what will happen when you click the X. We want it to delete, so let's do delete task, and then we could pass in the task here. And then in your Vue app, you have to define what delete task is. So you have methods, and then we could define delete task here. And what I want to do is, another thing that I didn't mention is that in the methods here, if you wanted to access your data, you use this dot something. So if I want to access the test, I use this dot tasks. So if you just use tasks, it doesn't work. It works if you have to have this dot task. So this dot tasks, and I want to delete the task that I have here. So I do splice and the index here. And how I find the index, I would have to do this dot tasks. Line index here. And here I pass in the how I find it would be, I'll just match the name. Oh, I have the same name. Let's just do T here. So if the name equals to t.name, then I will just remove that. So let's try it here. You click it, it will find the one that has the same name and delete it. So that's how you can delete it. And then the second task I wanted to do is I wanted to have an input box. And then I wanted to add it when I add some tasks. So here we could do an input box. So let's do input, and we bind it to some data. So we do v model, input text, and let's have a button here, so that we can add. So here, let's do, if you click the button, let's add whatever's in input text into the test. So let's do add task here, and then we do input text. But first we have to have the data declared here. So input text is, we should declare it here, so that you can get sync into whatever is typed in the input box. Will be sent into input text, and when you click add, it will call the function add task and pass in whatever input text it is. So here, add task T. What it will do is I'll just get all the tasks, and then I'll push a new task into it. So here I'll push, the name would be T. And let's try it. So here, right now, we have a new one. And we can see that what we are typing here, you can see that it binds the data value. Let's do task 5, and then add. So it will add it push it into the back. And then also we can still delete it. But I think after add, we want to clear this input. So let's do push, and then this dot input text equals to an empty string. So that I think will do the trick. Right. And maybe you want to ask, you wanted to be able to press enter. Right now, enter doesn't work. So maybe we can do the same thing. So other than click, there are a lot of other events that you can use. You can go to the Vue document and see what events are available. One available one is key done. So you could do keydone.enter. That will enable when you press enter. So you do the same thing, add task, input text, and then let's see if it works. Right now, enter, it works. So there are a lot of available events that you could use in Vue.js. Okay, so I think that is it for today. I would want to cover Vue CLI also. So this would be the basic ways if you wanted to include Vue.js. But if you wanted to do a single page application instead of just something like this, I think every one of you could check out Vue CLI. So Vue CLI is a command line tool that could help you bootstrap the whole application. And inside it uses Webpack. So you can actually, for each of your components, you don't just do Vue.component anymore. It allows you to have some other file, something .vue. If you wanted to do a modal component, you could create modal.vue file, and it will load those files, and then you can be able to use those components in your HTML. So that will help your component more manageable because you could split it into different .vue components, and then you can send those files to other people for other people to reuse it. So if you wanted to do a simple page application, I suggest you check out Vue CLI. And I'm not going to cover it right now. And then, so that's basically everything. So that will be the top workshop today. Thank you.